The Snowy Mountains and Kosciusko National Park, without a doubt, are some of Australia's most renowned and well-known wilderness areas today. That said, they're also, for me personally, an area that I've spent very little time exploring. And just last year, I was living and working in Albury on the Victoria-New South Wales border, and I actually came across some photos of the Kosciusko National Park, particularly the Yarrangobilly caves and thermal pools. I thought, my goodness, that looks so exciting, so different for the area, and somewhere I definitely want to pop on my personal bucket list to get out there and explore. For a whole number of reasons, I never got out there, but I'm finally in the northern end of the park today, and I'm about to head out there and check them out with you. So, the Yarrangobilly caves and thermal pools are located almost 200 kilometres by road, or a 2.5 hour drive from Charlotte's Pass and the Mount Kosciusko summit. Now, that road itself isn't completely encompassed in the national park, but I feel like that does at least give you an idea just how massive this area of country is. In fact, Kosciusko is the largest national park in New South Wales and covers an incredible 690,000 hectares. So it's no wonder that it is home to some incredible landscapes and hidden gems just like these ones. My trip with you today starts, as I mentioned, in the northern or upper section of the Kosciusko National Park at the Long Plain Hut Campground, one of the many beautiful camping areas and huts in the park, and where I chose to spend a few nights surrounding my visit. The area is beautifully maintained by New South Wales Parks, and I thought a really nice option to camp a little further into the bush and off the Snowy Mountains Highway. The area has dirt roads, little to no phone reception, and on a quiet day, not many people either, which certainly helps to make it feel more like the massive wilderness area that it is. In place of the busier tourist setting you'll find around Thredbo or Jindabyne, here I was greeted with wildflowers, open grass plains, dirt tracks, and the wild brumbies that are so iconic to the Snowy Mountain regions and roam there alongside you. Moving on to the caves and pools, much of the road in is dirt but easily accessible and again lined with forest and wildflowers. The caves and pools themselves are accessible only through the park's visitor centre and with a pass you can buy at such. Yarrangobilly I really didn't think was bad with entry at just $4 for the thermal pools, but as a whole the park I've found, at least in comparison to my other park visits around Australia, to be very expensive, with all previously free camping now including a COVID booking fee and entry fees reaching up to $29 for a single day in peak season. You'll also need to book cave entry or tours from here if you plan to see more than just the pools, which I would definitely recommend. At this stage, I think that was around $22 to $26 depending on what you actually want to access. Personally, I had been dying to see the Glory Arch, or otherwise known entrance to the Glory Cave, which takes you on a short walk through a rugged mountain landscape, overlooks the Yarrangobilly River, and finally leads you into the cave's cavern, branching into the North and South Glory Cave tunnels. The North Glory section I started with and wanted to show you purely for its huge open size. This passageway is decorated, like most cave systems, with a variety of formations. There were lights inside which were not turned on, so I definitely recommend bringing a torch or booking a guided tour, which you will need to access this northern section any further than I did. I love exploring these types of areas. I find them so fascinating, but I just didn't find the inside of this section to be pretty as such, and without placing a bias on it, it could just be that I didn't go any further without the tour. The entrance to it, however, on the way out was quite beautiful and framed the landscape of the mountains outside so nicely. Moving to the South Glory Cave, you pass first under the Glory Arch, and this, I'll be the first to say, really is a phenomenal sight. This arch in particular was one of the places I had seen pictures of that originally inspired me to visit the area, and whilst it is beautiful on a screen, I really don't think it does it the justice it deserves. To me, the Glory Arch was just such a huge open space that I don't think you can quite feel the scale without visiting and seeing it for yourself in person. Leading out from the arch, the South Glory Cave is explorable via a self-guided tour. Again, it is quite dark inside, absolutely freezing compared to the hot outside temperatures, and a fairly wet cave system, but completely paved and very accessible for almost any fitness level. This is a quick look around inside the cave. And one thing of interest I wanted to show again was just how damp it was inside this passage. This is simply my breath through the air into the torchlight, but it gives you an idea of the atmosphere inside and why it would be so cool. The path follows a number of stairways and exits out a door quite literally in the side of the mountains. Back into the heat, you then have the opportunity to explore the Yarrangobilly River Walk on the way to the thermal pools. It's only about a kilometre walk from the pools, but quite a nice bush path to explore the Snowy Mountains landscape and get back down by the water. The track in this warmer time of year was edged with native flowers and even wild raspberries, which make a pretty good mid-walk snack. Yarrangobilly thermal pools I can imagine year-round being quite the popular swimming spot, with beautiful clear water fed by a natural spring in a stunning mountain location. The water seeping up from the natural thermal spring was originally captured in 1896 by just a small wooden pool, but then later, believe it or not, reconstructed to the current pools by prisoners in 1969. As it was at the time a place of detention. Now, whilst I'd rather not be locked up, I have to say this is an incredibly beautiful spot for it, and one I'm certainly glad to have visited and couldn't refuse a swim at. It's said the water here stays 27 degrees year-round. And maybe that's true, but it certainly felt a little fresh in the warm weather jumping into me. Compared to other thermal pools such as the Enoch Hot Springs or Great Artesian Spa in Mitchell, Queensland, which I had previously visited, it goes without a doubt that the Yarrangobilly thermal pool was by far the most beautiful, and the one I'd be happy to return to even for just a picnic or a bushwalk. The walk back from the pools finally completes the park's loop, and to be honest with you, is a little bit of a tough uphill slog after a relaxing swim, but well worth it for the visit. This part of Kosciusko might be slightly lesser known or visited, but is certainly an incredibly unique and beautiful area and not one to be overlooked. I personally can't wait to explore more of Kosciusko in future, from its trails to mountains, lookouts and wildlife. But for now, I hope you enjoyed this week's bucket list adventure with me, just as much as I did, and I can't wait already to share next week's location.